There are mysteries so deep, crimes so puzzling, that no human can solve them. These are the cases that can only be closed by one of the most remarkable weapons available to modern law enforcement: the dog nose.
You could put a baby's teardrop on a football field and the dog could find it in 5 minutes.
Able to smell some odors with 10,000 times more sensitivity than people, dogs have truly superhuman crime-solving powers.
This case would not have been solved without the dogs. Never.
Without these four-legged detectives, thousands of criminals would elude capture. But for bad guys, there's no hiding from a good nose. Master trainer Bill Wittstein recruits his arson dogs from the local Humane Society in Clearwater, Florida.
Oftentimes, I take the dogs from the Humane Society that have been adopted 2 or 3 times, and people bring them back and say they're either untrainable or they've got really bad habits and they can't break them. Usually those dogs are actually the smarter dogs. They just need a job, and they need something to do, and they get bored.
The dogs Bill selects for arson detection work will train for over 600 hours. They'll learn to discriminate between 40 different fire accelerants.
The dogs are capable of detecting parts per trillion. That's what we know right now. That's less than a baby's teardrop the dogs can find. You could put a baby's teardrop on a football field and the dog can find it in 5 minutes.
Bill trained one of the first accelerant detection dogs in the United States, a black lab he got from the pound, whose work has led to 200 convictions. She is a hero, named Villain.
Villain and I have been partners for many years, and she goes to work with me every day, comes home with me at night, and you know, she's with me more than my wife. I mean, there's a bond there. I don't even have to tell her what to do. She knows what to do. She's one in a million.
In and around the Tampa, Florida area, Villain has worked over 1,200 cases. But there was one case that stands out from all the rest. One case where Villain was the only hope of justice prevailing. When A Nose for Crime continues, Villain's phenomenal nose will search for invisible clues. Next on Animal Planet. When a 46-year-old medical worker named Gwendolyn Bell arrived at the emergency room, she was burned over 2/3 of her body. Gwendolyn told doctors a horrifying tale. She and her boyfriend had been quarreling because she was trying to leave him. Wielding a knife, he chased her from room to room, splashing her with lamp oil and ultimately lighting her on fire. Gwendolyn's boyfriend, 51-year-old Johnny Harrington, said his girlfriend was lying. His story was that she was so despondent over their impending breakup that she'd lit herself on fire. Then, 9 days after she'd been burned, Gwendolyn Bell died. It was now a murder investigation. Tampa police searched the apartment twice, but they could find no evidence to confirm the victim's account. When fire investigators used a device called a mechanical sniffer to search for lamp oil residue, they couldn't detect any. Not a single drop anywhere in the apartment.
I realized that we had a very iffy case unless we found additional evidence. When you have 2 conflicting stories and the evidence could conceivably fit both stories, that in itself is a reasonable doubt. So we were very concerned about the case.
Crime scene investigators did find one very soapy area of carpet and burn marks on the ceiling directly above the wet area.
Mr. Harrington had given several statements to police officers who had interviewed him on that day. And one of his explanations was that yes, he had decided to clean the carpet that morning. Of course, there was only one small spot that he cleaned, and that happened to be right underneath the soot staining on the ceiling.
The state's attorney asked for an arson dog to help them gather evidence. The call went out to Bill Wittstein.
They needed to know if there was any accelerants in the apartment at all, if so, where. The apartment was pretty dirty. Things were scattered around the apartment. There was food laying around. The refrigerator had been left open and the power was off, so it stunk really bad. I couldn't smell anything but the rotten food, so we just basically held our breath as much as we could and worked the dog.
Bill and Villain came in, and Villain, he immediately just set her to work. He's like, seek, and she went through the entire apartment, and she started in the living room area and just started hitting on spots and alerting to spots.
She alerted pretty much immediately within the living room, and then also between the living room and the dining room, and as well in the bedroom area.
Given that this was a case of he said, she said, Villain was the first objective witness.
And we were just, oh, this is wonderful, because to me it totally blew away his version that she had poured lamp oil on herself. She was being chased, obviously, by someone who was trying to throw lamp oil on her. Every spot that Villain was able to hit on gave me another argument that she could not have done that herself.
She found it within a minute or two, and they had been there and searched a couple different times for many hours, so in less than a couple minutes we had the evidence that we needed to have.
The State Fire Lab tested Villain's samples from the crime scene for fire accelerants.
All of the samples that Villain identified were positive for lamp oil, and the lamp oil matched this bottle of lamp oil that was found in the bathroom. Villain's nose is so good that she can detect accelerants in levels lower than our best equipment can analyze.
The case went to trial. Bill was called to testify, and so in a way was Villain. While his dog waited outside the courtroom, Bill placed 2 single drops of gasoline on the floor.
And then he went and got Villain and brought her in, and she went straight to both spots and alerted. And the jury was, you could see it in their faces, they were very impressed.
The defendant was convicted of first-degree arson and third-degree murder. Although his case is on appeal, he is currently serving a 30-year sentence. Since helping to solve this crime, Villain has passed away. But her legacy survives her. To this day, Bill and Villain hold the record for the most arson convictions of any canine team in the United States.
Villain was the best. It's real hard to replace her. She just knew what I wanted and what I wanted to do, and that makes it real hard. But when you're with a dog for 13 years, if you don't own a dog or a pet, but anybody that does and they have a pet pass away, they know they're part of the family. She just wasn't a tool, she was my partner.
I think Villain is directly responsible for putting away someone who murdered another human being, and I don't know what better tribute there could be to a dog than that they have done that type of service to all of us.
Villain could not be fooled by the killer's attempt to cover his tracks with soap and water.